I've been doing my best Jacob Van Lunen impression and looking at the data. Staticaster. Is it Staticaster?
Yeah, Is It Staticaster is a great sideboard card right now.
Yeah.
The Craterhoof Behemoth deck came out of nowhere to be one of the breakout decks of last weekend. So you had Martin Juza completely dominate Bochum playing that deck. And
yeah, he took down the victory there, and we saw a really strong finish from Brad Nelson. He top 16.
Yeah, lost this match playing for top 8 last weekend in Charleston. Right now, Ben Stark developing his mana very nicely. Andreas Gans missing some land drops. Now still unable to produce white mana, but he did hit that third land drop, which is important.
That is important, but this is going to be tough for Andreas to come back from, in the sense that, in these matchups where I think that Andreas' deck definitely plays the control route in this, or they both are trying to control the board in the ways that are relevant for their deck. It seems like hitting your land drops is absolutely key, especially because, Andreas Gans, all right, now he has a Glacial Fortress, so we do see that he is now able to produce white, which is a big deal because normally that deck can just cycle right through the deck really quickly. He doesn't miss land drops that often.
Yeah, hitting a lot of land drops can be really important in a matchup like this because in the late game, it's really going to come down to Sphinx's Revelation. And if you've hit your land drops consistently throughout the game, your Sphinx's Revelations are going to be far more devastating than the opponent's.
Okay. Now, typically the blue-white flash deck has creatures with flash, which is its namesake, but it also runs a lot of counter magic. Is that? We can take a look at the deck list here. Is that the case in Andreas's deck?
Yes. Interestingly enough, Andreas Gans still playing 6 counterspells.
Okay.
That was the norm 2 weeks ago. Last week, a lot of people started to play less. But this week, most people are playing 2 or 3 counterspells at most in their blue-white decks. Andreas still has 6. So he was expecting a lot of bank control decks, a lot of planeswalkers. And that definitely affected his numbers here.
So we see a Cavern of Soul, Cavern for Ben Stark. He's named Beast with that.
So he wants to have his Thragtusks be uncounterable. It's a pretty valuable thing against this blue deck here.
So if you're sitting in Ben Stark's seat, the card that you're most concerned about from Andreas Gans is Sphinx's Revelation? Is it Runechanter's Pike? Like, what is the card that you...
I think Runechanter's Pike, which Andreas has in play, is definitely the most dangerous thing for Ben to see.
Okay. Because it just means that any creature he has
it can steal the game. And Andreas' deck is very capable of playing things at instant speed, so it can cast creatures on Ben's end step and then get in for huge amounts of damage with the Pike before Ben gets an opportunity to untap and get it off the table somehow.
Okay.
Ben's deck also has cards like Azorius Charm, which can be really good in those spots, but Azorius Charming something like Snapcaster Mage or Restoration Angel can often give Andreas Gans more card advantage.
Speaking of Azorius Charm, Ben just decided to cycle one on Andreas' end step, as Andreas just said, go. Andreas did go for a Snapcaster Mage, but Ben dissipated it. So that's going to, reduce a little value from Andreas in the sense that he doesn't get to flash back a cantrip, and it also means he doesn't have anything to put his Runechanter's Pike on currently.
Exactly, and a Snapcaster Mage is definitely the type of creature that Ben wants to be countering, as opposed to tempoing Andreas with a card like Azorius Charm. If Andreas were to have just played a Restoration Angel on Ben's end step, Ben would be much more likely to want to just Azorius Charm it back onto the top of Andreas' library and continue to choke Andreas on his land drops.
Okay. Yeah,
but something like Snapcaster Mage, you really don't want to put it back on top because then they can just flash back something again, and they're drawing extra cards each time.
All right, so Ben, and it's interesting. So if you're sitting in Andreas' seat, you're looking to counter the big stuff that Ben does, right? Ben's deck is going to have a lot of cards that aren't really that relevant to your game plan, and a few that are very, very relevant.
Yeah, you really want to counter his Sphinx's Revelation. That's the big one.
Okay. All right, so he's going to go for an Augur of Bolas. He says, trigger this. Let's see what he finds. All right, so he found a Dissipate. And we see Ben Stark diligently writing that down so he doesn't forget. Sometimes these things can go for many, many turns before that Dissipate actually gets resolved. And it looks like Ben is going to go for a Restoration Angel here on end step. And it does resolve. So now Ben has a little bit of pressure. Andreas sitting at 18, though. It's going to be a while.
Yeah, it's not going to kill him anytime soon.
Yeah.
And Andreas right now, with that pike in play, is threatening a reasonably fast clock. He does have, I believe he has 5 instances in his graveyard. So the Runechanter's pike on that Augur Bolas, it's going to be he's going to be hitting for 6 damage a turn unless Ben has something, and he does have Detention Sphere.
Yeah.
And I can expect that to remove the pike.
Yeah, for sure. He's going to target the pike if it resolves. And we're going to see the Dissipate, but I believe that Ben has a Dissipate of his own in hand.
And Ben knew about this Dissipate, so...
Yeah, he knew that that Dissipate was there, so he's either got another Detention Sphere or a way to counter the Dissipate.
Or he just has something more valuable in his hand and he just wanted this Detention Sphere countered so that he can resolve a big Revelation the next turn.
Yeah. I have to say, though, getting that Runechanter's pike off the table here seems pretty critical for Ben.
Yeah. Andreas also could very well have a second copy of Dissipate in his hand. Remember, before he revealed that Dissipate from the Augur Bolas, he played the Hallowed Fountain untapped and paid 2 life.
Ah, right.
So there's a pretty good chance that Andreas has another Dissipate in hand.
Okay, and Ben does go ahead and dissipate the Dissipate. Now, interestingly here, Ben does not have Dissipate mana up. He's got only 1 blue source available to him for an instant. So Andreas can resolve a spell here if he sees a win. If there's something in his hand that he really wants to hit, a Talrand or something. But of course, the problem being that he knows that Ben Stark does play Supreme Verdict, and he doesn't want to play into that. So Ben attacks. He's going to play a second Cavern of Souls.
Presumably naming Angel this time.
Probably, yeah. I don't know if Ben's running Angel of Serenity in his deck. That was in earlier versions of this deck, and it seems to have fallen to the wayside for the most part.
It looks like he does, in fact, have Angel of Serenity as 2 copies in his main deck.
Okay. Probably a nod to the fact that that aggro seems to have come back, and just removing 3 creatures is very, very, very relevant right now.
And Angel of Serenity, also very powerful. Removing your own creatures from your graveyard, it makes Angel of Serenity this inevitable card advantage engine. It's so good. It kills everything on your opponent's side of the table, or it is a 5/6 flyer that just gives you insane value if it ever dies.
Yeah, I was traveling with David Ochoa here. We always seem to bump into each other at the airports, and we take cabs or whatever. And I was asking him, okay, let's see what Ben's doing here. Looks like he's going to go for a very large Sphinx's Revelation, and he's representing. Does he have any cards in hand? Okay, so he's just playing around Syncopate.
Yeah, he knows Andreas only has 2 mana open, so the only counter spell that would be available to him would be Syncopate.
Yeah. At first, I thought he had Dispel possibly in hand, but it looks like that was Ben's last card because he's just hit every land drop for forever here. But I was talking to Ocho, and he said that if you can get an Angel of Serenity with an Angel, one of your own Angel of Serenities under it, like you're in a pretty bulletproof situation. Like they're going to have to come up with multiple answers in a row. And by the way, you've got a 5/6 flyer, so
it's pretty good.
Yep. All right. So Andreas is just going to keep plugging away here, but Ben Stark now has a full grip, having just resolved the Sphinx's Revelation, and he also gained 7 off of that. So
yeah, 7 cards in hand at 23.
Infinite mana. Like he's looking very, very good here.
Dominant board position. You have to like Ben's chances in this game.
He's just going to keep firing away with that Angel. We said it's going to take a while for that Angel to kill him, but in the meanwhile, it's done 9 damage to him. So, and it looks like, did Ben just pass a turn back?
And Restoration Angel is so powerful in this format, especially for these control decks that want to be playing counterspells, cards like Dissipate, tempo removal spells like Azorius Charm. It allows you to always be passing the turn.
Yeah.
And it forces your opponent to play into all of your spells, because if they try to play around them and pass the turn back to you, if they have any sort of board advantage, then you can just use their end step to create more of a board presence for yourself.
I see. All right, we see a Thought Scour from Andreas Gans. He did mill away
A Revelation,
which is certainly relevant, although at this point it looks like Ben isn't going to allow any Revelations to happen for the rest of the game. At least Andreas has to assume that.
Yeah, and even if he did resolve the Revelation, it would only be for 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And Ben just resolved one for 7. So it's almost like Ben resolved 2 of those.
All right, so what is Ben going for here? He's going to take 5 damage if he doesn't do anything.
I think he has an Angel.
Restoration Angel coming down. There it is. Now, doesn't have the ability to blink his other Angel, unfortunately. Otherwise, he could get a double block in here and really get him. But as it stands, he's going to take out a Snapcaster Mage by blocking.
And we can expect Andreas to have an Azorius Charm here. It seems like he's been sitting on at least one extra one for the entire game, but chooses not to use it.
Drops Ben right back down to where he started, 20 life. And Andreas has a total of 3 power on board. And it looks like Ben's got another Restoration Angel, so he's actually representing lethal damage here if this resolves.
Yeah, and Andreas absolutely has to counter this, but the big problem is that if he does counter this, he has Rewind. Okay, that's the perfect counter spell to have in this spot, because it's going to allow him to have mana open on Ben's turn.
Yeah.
Still, he's in a really, really bad place right now. Ben's going to put him to 3 and then have 2 different 3-power flyers in play. Ben's still at 20.
Yeah, Andreas can slow the bleeding a little bit here by Azorius Charming.
Ooh, but Kessig Wolfrun is going to just kill Andreas right now. And so we're about to see that. Steam Vents that Ben searched up on turn 2 with that Farseek ended up getting his opponent dead 1 turn sooner when he was able to top deck that Kessig Wolfrun. Now much later in the game. That Steam Vents in the deck only there to activate the Wolfrun. Ben instead choosing to not activate the Wolfrun, it seems. Oh, okay.
Because he can win. Well, because the thing is, he can, if he's okay just bringing him down to 3, then Andreas has to do the Azorius Charm play to not go to 3.
Yeah.
Ben, though, has really no reason not to just go for the win right now. And in fact,
he has no reason to believe that there is an Azorius Charm because his Angel wasn't Azorius Charm last turn. So.
That's right. And the fact is, even if he did have it, nah.
Yeah, no big deal. I'll just get him next time around. He
still has a lot of pressure and a full grip.
So Ben Stark able to take game 1 here from Andreas Gans. Let's look at these sideboards, see what both these players are going to be bringing in. Ben Seg is very controlling, so we can expect Andreas to bring in 2 copies of Geist of Saint Traft, an additional copy of Cavern of Souls, and he may bring in Detention Spheres.
I mean, what does Detention Sphere hit that he cares about?
Planeswalkers, and he's probably assuming that Ben is playing some number of Garruk, some number of Jace. He didn't see those in game 1, but you can count on it most of the time.
Especially Jace. Yeah, Jace is really popular. Jace is one of the staple cards for this Bant deck.
So Detention Sphere may come in. Cards I can absolutely expect to see are Cavern of Souls and Geist of Saint Traft. Talrun the Sky Summoner, very strong in the mirror here for Andreas, but against the Bant decks, they have too many copies of Supreme Verdict, and they're going to keep in at least 2 of those against you.
Now, I have a question, though. So Talrun, though, is pretty sweet in this deck in the sense that you can just play him, and he demands a Supreme Verdict. Like, Ben Stark can't get a ton of value out of it because it's not like he can sit there and then you're not gonna go Geist of Saint Traft into Talrun, right? You can go like Geist of Saint Traft, and then if it resolves,
then Ben has to
force Ben to Supreme Verdict, and then you play Talrun, and again, the deck is all cantrips. Like, you're gonna get 2/2 Drakes, right? And at that point, all right, let's take a quick look here. Cedric Phillips on the left-hand side versus Harry Corvesi on the right. Now, I had a chance to catch up with Cedric a little earlier in the day. I stopped by to watch his match, and he has, for those of you that are fans of his stream, he's been playing red-black on it. I watched a little bit this week. He instead is playing mono-red, so he's not mana-screwed right now. Those mountains are all very deliberate, and sure enough, he's playing mono-red. It looks like he's up against blue-white-red control, and I see that there's 2 Chainwalkers underneath a Detention Sphere. Mono-red does not have a way to deal with the Detention Sphere, so those are just gone. And it looks like he's facing down a Restoration Angel and a Snapcaster Mage. I don't know how many cards he has in hand. It looks like 2 from here.
And we see the dragon in his yard, the 4/4. What is it?
The Archwing Dragon?
Archwing Dragon.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful in this matchup, but Harry, interestingly enough, still has Essence Scatter in his deck.
Oh, really?
And one of the major reasons why the Dragon would be so good is because nobody's playing Essence Scatter anymore this week. So Cedric caught by... he's trying a little... sometimes you get caught by being ahead of the curve.
That's right. When somebody just shows up and just says, I like Essence Scatter.
I like the card, the week-old card. It's still good. Yep. And sometimes it is.
All right, looks like Harry Corvesi is at 11. I think he might be at 8 now. Yeah, so Harry drops down to 8 from a Searing Spear, I believe. And Cedric is trying to find a way. Is this going to be a Thundermaw Hellkite? Yes, it is. He's toying with it. He's showing it to his opponent. This might just be on the stack. All right, and it looks like it's going to get rewound. What is going on here? Snapcaster Mage is going to target Essence Scatter, and away it goes.
So now Harry's going to get to come in for 7 here, dropping Cedric down to 11.
What was he? He's going to unsummon for Searing Spear? Cedric must have been lower. I think we just missed one life total update because that had to be lethal. Yeah, so it looks like Cedric has fallen 2-0 here.
Well, there was another hard counterspell in Harry's graveyard also, so the unsummon plus Snapcaster with the counterspell if Cedric was drawing off the top. Also
I think Cedric had one card
a lock.
But yep. All right. So back to our main match here. Ben Stark on the left-hand side. He is up a game versus Andreas Gantz on the right-hand side. For those of you just joining, we're in round 4 here in San Antonio. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, and this is Jacob Van Lunen sitting right next to me. The match we are watching right now is one that we saw quite a bit last week in Charleston. It's a Bant control list on the left side with Ben Stark, and Andreas is on blue-white Flash. So how important is the turn 3 Geist of St. Traff now against Ben's deck?
With Andreas being on the play, it could just be huge. Absolutely game-breaking if you can back it up with a little bit of counter magic. You can steal a lot of games with that card.
Yeah, a time-honored tradition here in Standard. Geist of St. Traff backed up by counter magic is kind of a staple of the last year or so.
Again, though, Andreas only has access to 2 copies, so he can't really mulligan aggressively for them. But if he happens to have one in the early game, it's going to be very strong. And even in the mid to late game, Geist of St. Traff still presents a very unique problem for Ben that he's going to need to solve with a Supreme Verdict. Cards like Azorius Charm and Restoration Angel make it really hard for Andreas' opponents to profitably interact with the Geist the fair way.
Right.
So they're going to need to just clear it off the board. No questions asked with a card like Supreme Verdict.
Now, one of the cards I see in Ben Stark's sideboard is one of the best sideboard cards that we actually have in the format against a specific thing, which is the Graveyard. It's called Rest in Peace.
Yes.
Now, he's got 2 of them. One of the things that, again, this is actually came through a different conversation at a different airport with Ocho again. I talk to Ocho a lot at airports. And you know, we were talking about the blue-white deck, and, you know, he summed it up really nicely. He said, really, it's a graveyard deck.
Yeah, the first time somebody played Rest in Peace against me when I was playing Blue-White Flash, I was a little bit speculative over whether or not it should have been sided in against me.
Yeah.
But after the match, I realized how strong it was. Just, you know, their Snapcaster Mages become significantly worse. Their Runechanter Spikes become dead cards.
Yep.
Their Moorland Haunts are turned off. And when you're in a control matchup, those are your most important cards.
Those are the key cards, yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see Ben Stark playing a Rest in Peace, and it's an okay, so it looks like Andreas is going to take a chance to resolve a Runechanter Spike right away here. It's a key card in the matchup, like you just mentioned, Jake, and it seems very correct to get that thing on board underneath any counter magic from Ben. Now, one of the things about Rest in Peace is that it's interesting in the sense that it prevents cards from going to the graveyard, but it also removes the ones that are already there. So Ben
Morning
can use
Tides
it
when
as
it
a
comes
sorcery.
in.
He can use it as a sorcery later if he happens to draw it at another time. He's only got 2 in his board, so he might not have one. But I've seen that card just wreck this blue-white Flash deck. So what does Andreas have here? He's got a Cavern of Souls. after playing a Thought Scour.
He's naming Wizard, I believe.
That's the standard, although if he does have a Geist of St. Traft, it's a Spirit Cleric, I believe.
Yes.
And so he might have named something else. It is on Wizard.
Okay. Andreas Gans likely knows that Ben is going to be bringing in some number of Rest in Peace, but still does not have the ability to side out his Pikes. Pike is just so strong in these control matchups. It steals a lot of games.
Yeah.
A lot of the time you're bringing in some way to remove the Rest in Peace anyway.
Yep.
And it's unlikely that Ben is going to side in more than one copy of Rest in Peace against the Blue-White Flash deck.
Oh,
the
really?
Blue-White Flash deck, I mean,
You can't
I
afford
don't.
it.
I guess
I mean,
hypothetically
he's got two
you can.
in the board.
Having a second copy it's always nice to have it against the Unburial Rights decks,
Uh-huh.
but it seems very dangerous to give yourself the opportunity to draw 2 of that card in one game.
Okay. All right, so it looks like Andreas went for a Snapcaster Mage targeting his Thought Scour, and Ben negated the Thought Scour.
And that's really interesting. Ben,
Very aggressive negate.
wants to make sure that he's hitting land drops when Andreas is not hitting land drops.
Right.
And it seemed to work last game, and now it's working again. Andreas on 3 lands here.
Yeah, I mean,
Unable to find a 4th one.
yeah, because that keeps Andreas from drawing an extra card. It also keeps him from filling up his graveyard and making that Rune Chanter's Pike relevant. Right now, it's just granting first strike. Like, I wouldn't even play that in sealed or in limited. Like that's not playable as it sits,
Let's forget a whole bunch of Cobble Brutes.
which I usually do. All right, now there it is. The Geist of St. Traft. Does it resolve? If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's going to get dissipated. That should indicate to Andreas that Ben doesn't have Supreme Verdict in hand, right?
Yeah.
Like, is there a reason why you wouldn't just let it resolve and then just Supreme Verdict away both creatures?
Well, the problem is then you have to pass the turn, and it gives Andreas the opportunity to maybe just resolve another Geist. Ben doesn't know that Andreas only has 2 copies.
Okay. So there are some reasons why you would just dissipate instead.
Ben's completely comfortable just taking 2 repeatedly here. It's one of the nice things about playing a deck that plays cards like Thragtusk and Sphinx's Revelation. You can take a lot of damage, and it's really inconsequential.
Yeah.
The only points that really matter are the last few. And it's really hard for this blue-white deck to snowball damage if it doesn't get a Rune Chanter's Pike going.
Yeah.
And it seems like that one negate from Ben really put the brakes on that hard for Andreas.
It really does seem like it's working quite well. Again, the fact that Ben is being very aggressive with his counter spells here seems to be paying off, at least on the early stages of the game. And this is playing out a lot like Game 1 did, in the sense that Ben is developing his mana base. He's hitting land drop after land drop while Andreas is trying to get some cantrips through, but is not able to, and subsequently is missing land drops.
And Ben continuing to hit these land drops. And it may seem like Ben's not really doing anything, but hitting those land drops when you're playing Sphinx's Revelation in your deck, that's a lot more important sometimes than even having a creature to play on your turn.
So we see here that Andreas does finally stick a Thought Scour, and he milled away a Snapcaster and a Rune Chanter's Pike. A little bit of value in the yard there. He did, though, get get one instant or sorcery in the yard, so now Rune Chanter's Pike is actually granting a little bit of power boost, although Andreas has to be worried about Restoration Angel at some point eating that Snapcaster Mage, although feels like Ben would have played it already if he had it.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Andreas, if he did get to equip the Pike and get to send it in there, Ben would be, even though the Snapcaster Mage is only a 3/1, Ben would really be unable to flash in Restoration Angel and block and feel good about it anyway, because Andreas could just cast any instant.
Yeah, he can cycle an Azorius Charm, or he can hit another Thought Scour or anything like that. Instead, Ben is just taking his beats here while Andreas says, all right, I'm just going to hit you 2 at a time. Ben likely setting up for a big Sphinx's Revelation at some point. Andreas being tight on mana is going to make it tough. And Andreas says, I'm going to go for a Snapcaster and flashback Thought Scour. Now that's going to remove it. It's going to exile it, so that's not going to count any longer. And it looks like Ben says, all right, here's the moment where I go for Sphinx's Revelation. Now, he did leave up 1 mana here.
It's in for 4, and I mean, I believe that means that Ben Stark has Dispel in hand.
Dispel, right? Yeah, it does look like that's he's signaling that he's got a Dispel there, because Andreas doesn't have the 2 mana to represent Syncopate for 1 here. And sure enough, Ben Stark does get to draw 4 cards and gain 4 life here. And I think the Thought Scour is still on the stack. So Ben, depending on what he's drawn, could consider dispelling that, but he decides not to as 2 lands hit the bin. So now that Runechanter's Pike is back down to just nothing. It's just first strike.
Yeah, Ben very happy to just hit those land drops. It's okay for Andreas to have 4 points of power in play because Ben's still at 16 despite taking all those hits thanks to Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah.
Negated 2 whole attack steps for Andreas. And drew Ben 4 cards. Such huge value.
Yeah, that card's sick.
A lot of people thought that card might end up being a one-of in most of the control decks when the set got printed. And it turned out that it was much more than a one-of.
All right, so we do see Talrand here. And now Andreas has a board worthy of Supreme Verdict, and I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Ben just windmill a Supreme Verdict here.
He may have taken them out, though.
Oh, really?
I mean, Geist of St. Traft and Talrand are not cards you're expecting to see when you're playing against Blue White Flash.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, now that he's seen Geist of St. Traft and Talrand, he's going to have Supreme Verdicts in Game 3.
Uh-huh. All right, so we're going to see Detention Sphere resolved. It's going to target Talrand. And Andreas says, I'll unsummon my Talrand. And Ben says, no, sir, I'm going to dispel it. So he did have that dispel that we suspected in hand. And that's going to get Andreas Gaunt's 1/2/2 Drake before Talrand gets sphered away. And Ben follows up with a Centaur Healer to further cushion his life total and provide some blocking for that, for one of the Snapcaster Mages. Now, Andreas, he's got to feel pretty decent here that he didn't get Supreme Verdicted, and he's got 6 power plus an active Pike on the battlefield now, a few cards in hand. Ben Stark's at 15 with a grip of cards and a bunch of mana, though, so it's going to be hard to see. It's hard to see a way that Andreas can go long game here.
But Andreas can steal a lot of damage here. I mean, he's probably going to stick that Pike on a Snapcaster Mage, get him with the Drake and the Pike Snapcaster.
Yeah.
He's definitely winning the race. If he has a couple counterspells in his hand, he can control the game for long enough to get in there.
He does indeed equip up one of the Snapcaster Mages. And as you predicted, Jake, he's going to bash in there with those 2 creatures. Currently, the Snapcaster can't be profitably blocked. It looks like an Azorius Charm is going to hit the Drake. Of course, it's a token, so when it leaves play, it's just exiled. It doesn't get to go on top of any libraries or in any graveyards or anything like that. It's just gone.
So Talrand got a lot of great value for Andreas. In order to get rid of the Talrand, Ben had to...
And we see Rewind here from Andreas Gaunt, so that is going to add yet another point of damage to the pile here. I think it's 5. I think that Ben just took 7.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a pretty reasonable clock here for Andreas. I think he's just drawn your buddy, Little Garrick.
Ooh.
Is that possible? I think okay, so it looks like he's going to battle first. Again, more signals towards...
No, it's not possible.
Supreme Verdict, so that wasn't him. So what was it? Let's find out what he's got. Thragtusk? All right, Thragtusk it is. Back up to 14.
That adorable beast coming down. A few weeks ago, people were very upset about Thragtusk. People thought it was warping the format too much. But last week we saw, in the last week, we've seen black-red decks really push themselves toward the top of the metagame. They've proven that they're definitely tier 1, and suddenly people aren't really complaining about Thragtusk so much.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting arguments about Thragtusk. I don't personally think that it's too powerful. But I guess when it shows up in, Ben's deck is essentially a blue-white control deck with Thragtusk. And that's a little weird when you see, big green creatures showing up in blue-white control decks, but fair enough.
but it's a big green creature that does so much.
It does so much. The aggro decks want it. The control decks want it. Heck, the combo decks, the reanimator decks even run it. All right, so it's Andreas Gantz on the right side here. He is thinking about how he can get in there and finish off Ben Stark. He's sitting at 14. He now has a Restoration Angel, a 2/2 Flying Drake, 2/1 Snapcaster Mage, and the other Snapcaster Mage has a Pike that's giving it, I believe, +2/+0 in first strike right now.
So Andreas just sending in with the Flyers, choosing to keep all of his mana open. Would have to tap 4 mana in order to move the Pike and then move it back. Wants to keep that 1 Pike on defense. Really just keeps Ben's whole team at home. And that's one thing about Runetrader's Pike that's often overlooked is its blocking capabilities.
Yeah, it's excellent for blocking. Looks like Ben's got another Centaur healer here. It's going to put him back up to 12. So he's created a reasonable life cushion here, but these aren't really the spells that he needs at this point in the game. Like, Andreas has a better board position than he does.
Yeah, despite that big Sphinx's revelation, it's looking like Andreas Gantz just has more powerful spells this game. Or better position spells for the matchup, rather.
Ben would like to hit something like Jace, Architect of Thought, start digging through his library and start hitting some stuff. Another Sphinx's Revelation would obviously be awesome. Oh, that's a little bit of spice there.
That is pretty spicy.
We just saw a card on Ben Stark's deck list here that's pretty sweet. If it gets resolved, we'll bring it up again. If not, we'll save the secrets.
Yeah, I think we'll save a secret for later on in the tournament. I don't want somebody watching the coverage to call their friend when their friend's like, "Oh, I'm playing against Ben Stark." And be like, "Hey, watch out for this.
Watch out
it's
for
icky."
This. Yeah, that's pretty sweet though.
And now Ben at 5. Andreas
and
at
Ben
5
just
points in the air.
scoops him up, it looks like. All right, so let's see if Ben Stark goes back to his board here. I'm curious if he did have the I'm assuming the Wrath stayed in Supreme Verdicts, but who knows? Maybe we can take a look here when he goes. I saw the Angel of Serenity on the top. Yeah, you're right. They all came out. I just saw him in his board.
Yeah, I mean,
do you think he'll bring them back in?
Definitely. I mean, he saw Tolerant and maybe 2, maybe all 3. But I mean, he's gonna have to bring in at least 2 of them now.
I think he had all 4 on his board there. I believe he has. How many does he have total in the deck?
I think he has access to 4.
Yeah,
okay.
He has access to the full 4. So the question is just how many does he really want? Like you mentioned, it's not a you don't want to have to Supreme Verdict away a single Snapcaster Mage with a Pike on it. That's not really a way that you're gonna get ahead.
It's also hard to justify having Supreme Verdict against a deck that has so many creatures that have flash, because a lot of the time you're Supreme Verdicting to stabilize, and they can just take the opportunity of you being tapped out to resolve an Angel or a Snapcaster Mage that's going to flash back a cantrip. Okay. And then if they have a Pike in play, they're just going to hit you for 1 million anyway.
I see. They hit you for 1 million, and then you do it again, and then they do it again, and then you're dead. All right, so we're going to be going to Game 3 here in Round 4 from Grand Prix San Antonio. It's warm out.
It is. It's much warmer than home.
Yeah, for both of us.
Yes. Marshall is currently living in Seattle.
Yeah.
I am a New Jersey native, so
I think we have similar weather right now.
Around 30-ish degrees.
Oh, it's a little warmer it was 40 when I left home.
It might be a little warmer in New Jersey right now. Earlier this week, it
wasn't quite at freezing yet.
San Antonio, beautiful city. We're right here by the Riverwalk. Anybody wants to come down, check out the event site.
I've never been here before, but it's made a good impression on me so far.
Lots of great restaurants in this downtown area.
We've got 809 players here this weekend, which is pretty good. I mean, this is a holiday weekend.
Yeah, it's a great showing.
Yeah, solid turnout here. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, all of our American viewers.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to American viewers. There are a lot of things to be thankful for. Be thankful for Thragtusk and all of the bounty that he hath provided you.
I'll make sure to thank him next time I resolve one.
Thank you, Thragtusk. I appreciate you.
All right, so it looks like players are about ready to start Game 3 here. Ben Stark took Game 1 pretty convincingly and wasn't able to find the answers that he needed Game 2. He really needed Supreme Verdicts in Game 2 and didn't have them in his deck. He had sideboarded them out and wasn't able to find a way to defeat Andreas Gantz's army. He had quite a few creatures by the time he won.
Yeah, and Andreas Gans really won the game because of the fact that he had a card like Talrand, and Ben got caught without.
Yeah, and
His Wrath effect.
and interestingly, Talrand got killed the first opportunity that Ben had to kill it, and it didn't matter because Andreas was able to generate a Drake token out of the deal, and that was a critical creature. There's the rest in peace that we talked about. Now, Ben Stark is going to take the early turn here, where there's no counter spells in the format. They're going to counter rest in peace there. And he's going to get it down. So the cards that you're seeing Andreas mill away from his Thought Scour are all being exiled, including the Thought Scour. And, Jake, you and I were just talking about Rest in Peace in this matchup. Andreas Gantz's deck is actually a graveyard deck.
Yeah, I mean, he has Snapcaster Mages, he has Runechanter's Pikes, he has Moorland Haunts. All of those are his most important cards in this matchup. He's going to have a lot of trouble winning with that turn 2 Rest in Peace on Ben's side of the table.
It feels like there's going to be a lot of pressure put on a card like Geist of St. Traft or Talrand now to do a lot of heavy lifting for Andreas, and if Ben can find a way to deal with those, it should be pretty easy going for Ben Stark after that. I mean, just has to make sure he doesn't get got by a timely counterspell from Andreas on like a Sphinx's Revelation or whatever.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting that Andreas chose to Thought Scour himself there when the Rest in Peace is in play. These control mirrors can go very long, and a lot of the time the matches are decided by one player decking. Getting those extra cards off the top of Ben's deck, that is a relevant clock in this mirror match.
That's absolutely relevant. We saw that time and time again last weekend in Charleston. I remember the first time I saw it, I thought, he also gets to see a few cards, right? Like maybe there's a sideboard card that he doesn't know about that there could be multiples of. And it looks like Talrand does come down here, and he's named Merfolk or something with...
Yeah, Wizard.
He's a wizard?
He is a wizard.
Oh, I didn't know that he was a wizard.
Augur Bolas, Snapcaster Mage, and Talrand are all wizards.
Wow. All right, so he's named Wizard, so it's uncounterable, and it looks like it's just going to get instantly detention sphered here.
Going to detention.
This time, no
Drake.
Drake.
Talking in class, Talrand.
No.
Imagine that in school. You get in trouble. They put you inside of like this sphere.
Like a ball.
Yeah. The Azorius people. Go to school. That wouldn't be good at all.
That's a little awkward, but I don't... it looks kind of cool. This is Rashad Miller being a wizard himself over there. And all right, and
this time Andreas is going to get a little bit of value out of this. Thought Scour comes down. It's going to make another Drake.
Yeah, so another detention sphere for Ben Stark is going to take out the second Talrand, except for, like you said, we get a Drake out of the deal first. We can see very clearly on the graphic there that Cavernous Souls has named Wizard. I don't know how you did that, Rashad. You lined that. Oh, uh-oh. Second Cavernous Souls on the table here.
Naming Angel, I assume.
All right. Well, how would I know it's Angel? It doesn't say on the... A big sigh from Rashad there. All right, so Andreas is going to start slowly chipping away here at Ben Stark's life total with a 2/2 Drake.
And Ben, again, like I said, last game, 2 damage a turn is not that big of a deal. Once he starts getting hit for 4 or more per turn, Ben's going to really need to worry about this. But as long as he's only getting hit for 2 a turn, he can really just hit his land drops and be pretty confident about his chances to win.
Okay. Ben Stark cycled an Azorius Charm. Probably wouldn't mind having that one in his hand right now.
No.
Considering the fact that it just kills that he just drew one right on time. He's just going to ship the
Not
turn
too
back.
bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think that given that Ben Stark wants to push this game as long as possible, especially given the rest in peace that he has on the table, just taking out that Drake seems pretty astute here. Andreas does have an Angel. He taps the Cavern of Souls so that it can't be countered.
And now that Andreas has that Angel in play, Ben is going to need something like Supreme Verdict. At the very least, he's going to need a Thragtusk on the following turn, maybe in conjunction with an Angel this turn.
All right, so he does, in fact, Azorius Charm away the Drake, or at least attempt to.
We're going to see if Andreas has a counterspell. If he does, I believe Ben does have a negate in hand.
Andreas carefully thinking about if he just doesn't mind. Yeah, okay, the Drake's down. Drake down. It's going to knock Ben down to 15.
But really not the end of the world for Ben, or for Andreas. You know, he made Ben use 2 cards, an Azorius Charm and a Detention Sphere, to deal with the value that he got off just 1 Tolerant.
Again, he mills himself.
Decreases the chance that his deck will fall over.
Small edges.
All these small edges.
All right, Ben drops down to 12 here. He doesn't have anything to deal with the Angel currently. And Andreas just ships the turn back. 2 sad Moorland Haunts on the table for Andreas. And there it is, the Thragtusk that you mentioned. Now, did Ben have... He does not have a Cavern, so it's going to get rewound. And with rewind on the stack, it's going to get negated. And that... Does he have 4? Yeah, he does have 2, 3, 4 for a second rewind. So untap 4 and then untap 4 again. And now all of a sudden Ben Stark he's on a 4-turn clock as the board sits, and and Andreas Gans has his hand and all of his mana available on Ben Stark's end step here to resolve another Angel or whatever it is that he feels like. Snapcaster Mage just for pressure. Or a Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, big
for
one.
5.
It's looking really bad for Ben now.
Yeah, that's really bad for Ben, although the pressure isn't immediate from the Sphinx's Revelation. It does give a certain sense of inevitability to Andreas and his game plan here.
Especially with him having the superior board presence right now. He can really sit on all those cards. He gets to untap first. He has Moorland Haunt in play.
Yeah, this is savage. He can resolve whatever the heck he wants right here.
And the blue-white deck doesn't really have that many Haymakers, so he's probably just going to be happy to pass the turn back.
I mean, we did see Geist of St. Traff from him.
It's true.
It's a Haymaker.
Geist of St. Traff could definitely come down, start doing a little bit of work.
Especially now that he has, because it's neither a Angel nor a Wizard, so he can actually just get it through a counterspell if he's worried about that.
It's the first real opportunity he's had to play it through counter magic.
He's got a Restoration Angel.
And interestingly enough, Andreas Gans has not drawn any Pikes or Snapcaster Mages this game. So the rest in peace that Ben had is a lot weaker than it normally would be in this matchup.
Yep.
The 2 Detention Spheres, one of them only traded for half of a card.
Okay, I think he just played Erase on the Rest in Peace. So that could definitely get things moving forward for Andreas Gans as far as those other cards that you just mentioned. He also has 2 active Moorland Haunts, no creatures in his graveyard to get them, but he's got the mana and the ability to use it if something dies. So he's going to drop Ben down to 9 here, and he's deciding if he wants to go for something. I mean, he can resolve what he wants here.
It's dangerous to go for anything, though.
It's like Snapcaster Mage is what he's decided on. It looks like I think he's going to erase the one of the Detention Spheres to get his Talran back.
And suddenly it becomes very clear why he got detention. He's been throwing erasures.
Wow. Going deep. All right, shift the turn back.
And now Ben absolutely, absolutely needs Supreme Verdict.
I think he just passed the turn.
He might just be dead.
I repeat, that is time in round 4.
He's
No,
facing
not dead.
down 7. Now, Andreas did not play an instant or sorcery. If he could have made a Drake there, he would have had lethal damage on the table. Let's see what Andreas has here. He has 7 power. Ben is at 9. A Runechanter's Pike would not do it as the board sits, as there's nothing in Andreas's yard. Rest in Peace was on the table for the majority of this game. It's gone now, but the Erase was flashed back with a Snapcaster Mage. All right, it looks like Andreas has no fear at all. He's just going to bash with everybody. Even though there is a Restoration Angel in his future, it doesn't resolve.
And take this opportunity.
Okay,
Try
yeah,
to block Talrand.
Yeah, it did resolve. He's going to block Talrand. And is this going to get Azorius Charmed? No. It's going to get Restoration Angel to save Talrand. Okay, so Andreas has even more creatures on the battlefield now, and Ben is going to take 5 and go to 4. So it's basically Supreme Verdict or bust here. I don't even know if a Sphinx's Revelation for 4 would do it, as Andreas has so much power and toughness. It would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah,
Actually,
it would only put him to 8.
It would put him to 8, so it would actually keep him alive a turn.
Well, no, because he can
resolve.
swing in with the Snapcaster and the Talrand also.
An Acidic Slime.
Acidic
He's
Slime.
going to blow up his own Detention Sphere, and that's going to Legend Rule both Talrands out. So,
Yep.
Acidic Slime, interesting to blow up your own permanence with your Acidic Slime, but when it's correct, it's correct.
Yeah, so this Moorland Haunt activation will present lethal to Ben. So he still needs something else. Yeah, Andreas can bash him with everybody.
I think Ben is down to 1 card in hand, and I think he would have played whatever that card was earlier. So I expect Andreas Gantz to win this here on this turn, potentially 1 Angel and 1 token getting in will do it. And sure enough,
That's it.
it is lethal. Ben Stark extends the hand, and Andreas Gantz is victorious.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw the Bant deck, the New Wave deck. This is the Channel Fireball deck for the week.
Yep.
And it's playing against an old school blue-white flash deck.
Yep.
A blue-white flash deck that you very much would have expected round 3 or 4 last week.
Uh-huh.